Okay, welcome everyone, and thank you for coming. We will call to order our regular meeting of council. We will start by recognizing that we're holding our meeting on the unceded territories of the Hoopachesit and Sishot First Nations. We do have an agenda in front of us. Are there any late items to add from councillors? Yes. Councillor Solda?
Madam Mayor, I would like to add about the development permit for Randy Brown's building on 3rd Avenue.
We'll add that under unfinished business item number 3.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I understand we're going to amend the agenda to remove delegation number 2 today, who wasn't able to make it. Are there any other changes to the agenda?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. If we could also consider an amendment to add item J1G, which is correspondence from the Executive Director from the Ministry of Forest Lands and Natural Resources. And then just one item for clarity, under E1, unfinished business and the Alberni climate action, just the way the agenda is structured, it appears that it gives the impression that the declaring a state of climate emergency is captured in the engineer's report, but in fact it should have been listed just above that. It was just brought forward as a result of the delegation that you heard from Mr. Morton.
Thank you.
So we want council to consider that in advance of the director's report.
Okay. With that, would somebody like to move approval of our agenda as amended?
I'll move that.
Moved by Councillor Poon, seconded by Councillor Corbeil. Any comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. And we have minutes from the regular meeting held at 2 p.m. on October 12th, 2021, and the special meeting held at 4:30 p.m. on October 20th, 2021. Would somebody like to move adoption of minutes?
Move to adopt.
Moved by Councillor Solda, seconded by Councillor Poon. Any comments on the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. And next on our agenda is public input period. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address council on topics of relevance. When you get to the podium, if you could just state your name and address clearly for the record, and we give each person who would like to speak up to 3 minutes to speak. And I'll go to Mr. Anderson first.
A new subject. I want to make a few comments regarding seniors and retirees and the predicament that we're faced. And I say we because it's a large percentage of people who have been retired for many years, 20 plus years, and who are constantly falling behind with the inflation. I mean, to a point where they're having difficulty sometimes even keeping the house that they have. You're looking at house insurance. My house insurance from last year went up $900. And that was mostly for earthquake. And I asked the insurer, I mean, how many times have you insured someone from an earthquake in the last 100 plus years? 0. So this money that they're collecting, is there not, most of that 900 was for that, but there certainly was other additions. They were good enough to look around and help me and come up with a better rate with another coverage. But these are realities that are being faced by our seniors. We're looking at, I think it's April. Correct me if my dates are wrong. They're up there somewhere, mostly on the tip of my tongue. There's more on the tip of my tongue than there is up here. So 10%, which would be a $50 a month, that wouldn't even cover my insurance. And you look at the grocery stores, we won't get into all that, you're all aware of that. And the last decade, from the information that I have available, I'm not saying, again, don't hold me to a cent, old age security went up just over $1,000, which would work out to roughly, again, $85 a month in the last 10 years. It's gone. And before the last election, I phoned the representatives from most except for one party. I didn't talk to representatives of them, and each one of them told me the same thing. They said, "Oh yes, we understand that this is a big problem," and referred me to a website where they had their policies. When we had the federal debate, I didn't hear it brought up, only a question put forward by a member of the public. And My point I made to them, if all the parties seem to agree that this is a big problem that needs to be dealt with, here's an issue that all the parties agree with. Why is nothing being done? Because the will isn't there. None of them had an answer to that. Oh yes, but you have to read our website. And I know we can't do anything as a municipality, but we go to different events, and I can't ask questions, but I do wonder if these issues are brought up at the various events that our council goes to. And if they do, are we making it an issue, and are we being an advocate for the retirees in our community? It's a huge problem, and so many need our help. Thanks for letting me go over.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson, and I'd love to connect with you on this after the meeting or next time I see you here. There's definitely more to talk about, and yeah, okay, we'll do that. Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who would like to speak today? Come on forward.
Councillors, Mayor, thank you. I'm just here today because I'm very concerned about our heroes. And I remember back about a year ago, I was standing on my front porch at 7 o'clock with my garbage can lid and my spoon, cheering those people on that were working at our hospital. Overtime, double shifts, no days off, scared to go home to their family. And now I'm talking to my friends, and thank God, I guess I'm lucky I'm old and I can be retired and in the boat of starving to death. But here I am, I'm old and retired, and now my friends are losing their jobs, and it's happening. And our hospital, we didn't have any room to lose any staff. I was employed at West Coast General Hospital for over 42 years. When we moved into that hospital in 2001, it was over full. I'm sure it is today, although they don't let me in the door. It wasn't from COVID 20 years ago. It wasn't from COVID 10 years ago. We have a winter burn. People get sick in the fall, which is going to happen right now. But for us to lose those people at the hospital, and we are losing them, and you got to ask yourself, why are they reluctant to take this shot? I think we got to start asking some questions. My want here today is I would like City Council to share their concerns, or maybe mine, or the people that are losing their money and their mortgages and their homes here in Port Alberni. So I kind of thought I could talk to these people, and they say, well, it's not our jurisdiction, but you are our voice, and I need this message to go out. We would be a fool. We are fools if we allow our hospital to lose these valued long-term employees without asking why and questioning it. It is crazy. It's like shooting your own foot off. So I ask you, I'm standing here begging for a letter to Bonnie Henry, Adrian Dix, Josie Osborne, anybody you can think of. I would like to see some support for the hospital workers in this valley that have been here for so many years and paid their taxes and became a good part of society. And I think that you people, you voted people, my voice needs to back it up. Because I'll tell you, I retired, I loved my job so much, I went back to work. And now I cheer up old people, or I wish I could. But I'm not willing to play the game. We need to keep our valued employees. We need to ask some questions. We need to grow some balls. I would really be happy to see you folks stand up and write a letter on the hospital people's behalf. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Any other members of the public who would like to speak today? Come on forward, Elliot.
I'll see you all in a moment, but I should put on my other hat for a second while I'm here. My name's Elliot Drew, 4849 Swanson Street. I just want to let you all know that the Capitol Theater is soon to be reopening after its very, very, very long COVID hiatus. Our first show back is set to open November 19th at 7:30. Protocols all are in place, and of course, vaccine passports are mandatory, but we are hoping that the public will be there. The show is called The Complete Works of William Shakespeare Abridged, of which I am lucky enough to be part of the cast. It has been a little bit of a labor of love getting the show rehearsed during these times, and we are very excited to be welcoming people back into the Capitol Theater. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we do have room for one more member of the public if anyone else wishes to speak today. Come on forward.
Yes, I'm Monica Alrus, and I'm brand new to Port Alberni. And why I want to stand and speak for you today is that I'm coming from Scandinavia, so I'm a Viking. And we're talking about cleaning our environment. And my proposal is let's really rock Canada and be #1 in Canada here in Port Alberni. By doing that is, instead of having 3 different garbage cans, we actually redo the whole garbage situation. And there's over a dozen different stations that go. So for example, I'm just giving you an example. Sweden is taking England's garbage and recycling it, and they do an incredible job. We can do exactly the same. So it's totally restructuring the garbage situation. We can recycle everything we have, but we are not doing it. Canada has not even started it. I went in school in the 60s. I'm one of the hippie girls. And we were talking about, of course, free love and then also about environment. I studied that in school when I was a teenager. I came to Canada as a 21-year-old, and my sons did not study about the environmental issues. I had a speech, 1972, in the United States about environmental issues. You know what they said, Americans, to me? They said, poor Monica, she's coming from a very dirty country. They didn't get my speech at all. But now we are here, and I think it's extremely important, if we want to be up with Europe, that we are going to redo the recycling and garbage, and we can start it here in Port Alberni. And I'm happy to talk more about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and welcome to the community. Okay, we will go to our delegations, and the first one is from the Alberni Valley Community Forest Corporation. We have Jim Sears for our favorite purpose. Jim.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, Council, and staff. First, I'd like to recognize some hardworking people in the room as well. We've got Gary Swan on the Board of Directors for the Community Forest, Bob Cole, Chris Duncan, and Chris Law, the manager for our Community Forest. For those of you who may not know where that is, we have 2 parcels of land. One is out at the by the, I guess, at the old West Bay store, and the other one is at Taylor Arm, up on the left-hand side. So the Alberni Valley Community Forest is glad to be here today to hand over a check for $300,000, representing a dividend to the city. And we continue to achieve profits from our operations, and a dividend was awarded even though we did not realize any revenues from logging, as our production did not take place until early this year. So the dividend's recognizing our operation in 2020. We're still maintaining a healthy retained earnings so that we can take advantage of opportunities, and that we remain and continue to be a healthy company. So any questions? We had an AGM earlier this year, and we went through all the plans and where we were to date.
Thank you. Well, I will come accept that check in a moment. But I just wanted to, on behalf of council, really extend our thanks for all of the work that you and the board do, and Chris, of course, the manager as well. We're very fortunate to have your group working on our behalf, and just really feel privileged to have you working with us and showing, I think, the community how logging can be done, balanced with recreation and all the other values that we hold dear in our community. So thank you.
And I think you'll notice if you're out in our community forest, the public are using our community forest more than ever before, particularly in terms of the pandemic. Will this be a photo op?
I think we should have a photo.
Yes. Can we put the rest of the directors in here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe I'll even get this just that way a touch. Perfect. Okay. Okay, then you guys have to stay, because I have to do it with my camera too. Yes. 1, 2, 3. Okay, 1 second. Okay. Perfect.
Thank you. I should be passing this check to Andrew, but I'll hold it for now. Okay, thank you so much again. Are there any comments or questions from council before we move on from that? Councillor Paulson?
I want to echo what the mayor said, and thank you all. First of all, it's a volunteer committee, and thank you for your time. Without people putting in their time, things like this just don't happen. So thank you all so much. Chris, for the management, you all put in a fair amount of time, and it is greatly appreciated. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you. And recognizing Councillor Corbeil as well as our liaison on the board. Okay, we will move on to the Alberni Valley Chamber of Commerce. We have Bill Collette and Elliot Drew here to present. Bill, I hope you have $300,000.
Well, you know, I was just going to say that I don't even have a $3 check. I'm really sorry about that. But anyways, well done, folks. That's really great. You guys are an incredible organization. Mayor and Council, thanks for letting me chat here today. And I'm going to try, do you have a clock? Because I have a tendency to talk too much. So I'm going to try not to do that.
I will start my clock.
So what I'm going to do today is just quickly go over a bunch of our slides and just kind of plant the seed for you to think about asking me questions later on if you like. Because really I want to make sure that Elliot gets enough time at the mic here, because as you can tell he likes to be in front of a mic. So I will carry on here. Some of the main things that I wanted to just bring your attention to is our Better Buy Port Alberni site. We've been working on that for about 18 months. And it remains a big feature. The MRDT, I've got a slide a little later on about that, and I'll chat about it. Our communications with the Chamber of Commerce, and in particular a new website that we've got, and our Shop Local program that's hopefully forthcoming. Yes, so let's just carry on here. We can. One of the things we have done is we've really addressed our needs internally, recognizing the challenge that many businesses have with wages, et cetera. And we've made a commitment to really address that with our employees, because we've got a great team of employees right now. So we've done a fair bit of work in that area. Benefits programs, this is something I'll be talking to a lot of businesses about. I really believe that benefits is critical, and it's a way that businesses, so if you're running into any businesses that are challenged with employees, we're really encouraging them to look at benefit programs. If you walk into Save On today, you'll see a big sandwich board there. They are looking to hire, and they broadcast that they hire with benefits. So it's very, very important. This is something fairly new. The island chambers are forming a group similar to the BC Chamber of Commerce. So the BC Chamber of Commerce represents all BC chambers, of course, and goes to government. Well, the island is going to be doing the same thing through Victoria, and because there's many, many island issues. Fisheries, I got Bob Cole here as example, and fisheries was something we addressed a couple of years ago and we continue to address, so we'll be stronger because of that. The Fairs, Festivals, Events Recovery Fund, this was a program that came up, and I think some local associations have applied. However, the program is very, very restrictive, which many of these programs have been, we've found. So it's rather unfortunate that well-intended program, but I'm really not sure how many of our events have actually been able to access it. Things like the Salmon Festival, for example, I would imagine, I don't know if they've applied, haven't. And one of the detriments to this particular program is that that it didn't permit for any food component, food or beverage. So one of their major costs is food. And same with the toy run. We were helping the toy run, and we realized right away, oops, they don't qualify either. So many of these programs, well-intended, they don't work. Municipal Regional District Tax. So we've been involved in this for many years. The mayor, Councillor Haggard, very familiar with it. And I won't go into a lot of detail, but we're getting there. We're close to having the numbers we need. As a matter of fact, we might even be there, but we'd like to have higher numbers yet. And we're working on that. But one thing that I don't have on the slides here, but I'd like to draw your attention to, and I've got a document here that we can share with you at a later time if you like. But there's an organization known as AirDNA, and they collect data from Airbnb and VRBO and other organizations like that. This data is critical, and I really encourage the city of Port Alberni or Alberni Valley Tourism, or even ourselves, somebody who has the money, which wouldn't be us, to invest in this particular program because the data is incredible. You can find out anything and everything you want to know about Port Alberni right now. We know how many Airbnb places there are. We know what they're rented for. We know when they're rented. We know who's coming to Port Alberni, et cetera. So these are really important pieces of information that, and I've got a sample that you can take a look at in subsequent to this. Chamber website, I've referred to that. We're really pleased with how we've progressed with this. It was part of the grant program that we got. And one of the things we've really committed to is giving lots of value to our members. So if you go to that site, every internal page will focus on one of our members, and it's quite nice. So really, really pleased with that. Better by Port Alberni, as you know, that's been something we've been working on for 18 months, and we continue to do so. I just got an email today from Tim Hortons. They would like to work with us again this year for their employees to give out gift cards through that program, and we really enjoyed doing that last year. It was great for it. Newsletter. Our newsletter is quite strong, one of the strongest in the province in terms of statistics. Tours. This is something the mayor might be interested in. So tours is something that we focused on when we did our McLean Mill presentation a couple of years ago. I was asked recently to conduct a tour for an organization, Wells Gray Tours, out of Kamloops, and they just loved the tour that we did. So it was about 3 hours, and you can see on the slide there what was said by Annette Clement just a couple of hours after the tour, folks that were staying at the Barclay. So we really see tours as an opportunity in Port Alberni. And on the horizon, I just wanted to draw your attention that we are going to be bringing events back. We've got 3 of them that we're working on right now, a chamber dinner meeting at Dog Mountain Brewing in February. We want to have a welcome back tourism. We've arranged to charter the Francis Barclay in late April. And then our Community Excellence Awards, we're hoping to run that outside primarily at McLean Mill on June 17th, 2022. And that'll be an event where we can hopefully acknowledge efforts through the business community for 3 years running. Shop local. There's a grant out there that we are applying for. And I've actually initiated a relationship with Tofino Ucluelet, and our grant, we'll be working on it this week to do a major Shop Local program, Shop the West Coast. And it's all part of funding received from the federal government by the various provincial chambers. So we will be applying for that. And these are just some slides on the Shop Local program. And there's a sample of the poster that will be placed in various participating stores this year. So it'll be driven by QR code, so people will buy again, this is by grant, so if we don't get the grant, it won't happen. But if we do, people can go in and click on the QR code, enter their name, take a picture of their receipt, and then that will populate a spreadsheet on their behalf, and they will earn points towards potential pricing of $500 gift cards and that sort of thing. So we're really excited about it, and we've got, the posters will be different for each of the 3 communities involved. And now, what you're really here to hear is Elliot. So Elliot's been working for us for the past few months, and I must say, he's done a great job. And so I'm really, really pleased to be working with Elliot, so I'm going to turn it over to him. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Elliot, Bill left you about 3 minutes.
Oh, perfect.
We'll give you a little extra, though.
Okay, I'll be really, really quick then. Madam Mayor, councilors, staff, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to update you on our small and medium-sized business COVID relief support program. It is really wonderful to actually be with you all today. So just a real quick history on the program. It was conceived by Pat and Bill and with assistance from the Alberni Valley Community Futures and Alberni Valley Employment Center, and has been funded by by ICE-T through their Rural Business and Community Recovery Program. The Chamber has taken on the day-to-day housing of the program, and I report directly to Bill. The program was intended to assist local businesses in accessing assistance in recovery from the impact of the pandemic, with a focus on expanding the digital footprint of the Alberni business sector. The plan would be to develop a questionnaire, which would help us determine eligibility for various grants and programs. 2 small business consultants would meet with the businesses to complete the survey and educate them on the resources, work with them to secure the assistance, and finally to update a database for future use here in the valley. I began my efforts in mid-April, and immediately experienced the ongoing theme of the pandemic, which was change, with new health orders that came down and new assistance programs coming in as a response. My mandate quickly changed to reach out to our hard-hit restaurant and tourism operators with the BC Circuit Breaker Grant. During those first initial weeks, I also spent a lot of time researching the very many assistance programs, understanding their eligibility. Our second business consultant, Terry Hebert, joined me in mid-May, and that's when we really began our outreach. That really lasted until July 31st, and so this is pretty much what we did during that time. We contacted about 278 businesses and about 8 nonprofits. We conducted about 134 meetings. Of those, 106 businesses completed our survey. And from that, we had a little bit of insight into where we are at as far as e-commerce goes, with 68 businesses confirming some level of e-commerce capability, 40 businesses going the web, what's that? And about 13 businesses asking for help, and most of those were in that 68 that had some presence but wanted to expand. Prior to our efforts from these 106 businesses, we learned about $2.4 million of funding had already been accessed. Although we have worked with those businesses, and we have been able to add another $417,500. That is what we know of confirmed. We still have a lot of people that had told me at that point that they were still waiting for money They may have, but hadn't seen it yet, or we're still in the process, and just we haven't had a confirmation yet. So that number is still set to grow somewhat. We've also been able to help the businesses, not just in accessing funds, but accessing help. With 31 referrals to the Chamber of Commerce, many of those about Better by Alberni, 4 referrals to AV Employment, 19 referrals to Community Futures, many of those about selling businesses, 38 referrals to the Consulting Hive, which was an amazing program set up by Community Futures to work with businesses on any range of issues they might be having, whether it be applying for grants, whether it be marketing help, accounting help, anything. It was all free over the course of the pandemic, and it was a great resource for us. We had 3 referrals to the city of Port Alberni. Most of those were about patios. And I know that a lot of people were very helpful, or very grateful for the help in getting that done, especially in the restaurant industry. And then we added 163 additional database updates to the Executive Pulse program, which Pat is using to build a business database for the city. So like I said, that phase of the program pretty much concluded in July due to the cessation of most of the federal and provincial support programs and with the opening plan. Our second small business consultant, Terry, left to return to her full-time employment at that point. So most of July was looking at doing the follow-up and kind of going from a 2-person operation down to a 1. We also then spent, as new programs come available, we make sure that we're assessing their eligibility and reaching out to organizations. Bill already touched on the fairs, festivals, and events funds. I had reached out to about 20 organizations. There were 4 that I know actually attempted to put together an application. I haven't heard from any of them if they were successful yet. But I do know, much like the programs, there were many holes to fall through. And sometimes it was very difficult for some of our smaller businesses and our smaller events to actually navigate what was intended as a larger based funding initiative. So now we have kind of had to pivot again, and now I am working in support of the Better by Port Alberni site as a means to help small businesses expand their online footprint. I've also, the site now has grown about 30% since I took over doing that. And I should mention too that at present it is free to sign up. And is being fully funded by the Chamber at this point till the end of 2021. We're also, I should also mention that we are working on a few other initiatives. The business continuity planning. There was a great tool put out in response to the wildfire season by Community Futures to help businesses plan for these unforeseen and often catastrophic kind of disasters and cessations of business. We did that by email, and I followed up with about 140 businesses at this point. I haven't had a request as of yet to help anybody with that planning, but I'm hoping that everybody took a look at that email and make sure that they spend the time because it's really important. Something as small as an owner going to the hospital can change your business completely, so it's good to have a plan. Also working with Bill and the Chamber on employee benefits, because the number one concern I'm hearing as I speak with all of these businesses is the labor shortage. Attracting employees has become nigh on impossible for many people, and the owners, the managers, the people are tired as they're trying to take up the slack. So attracting employees, benefits is one of those things that you think might be useful. Make sure that you reach out, and I'm more than happy to help with that. I just went over most of that stuff, and this is going to be it, and I will get out of your way. So obviously this program continues to evolve as the ongoing nature of change brought about by the pandemic continues. And we are in a very different place than we thought we were going to be just a few months ago. However, I do know that the business community has very much appreciated our efforts, and many times, just being told that the city and the chamber have put together a program like this, where real people are reaching out to say, hey, I'm here to help, means a lot. And that, more than anything, has actually been the best part of my job, is being here to help in whatever way they need. And sometimes that's just listening for a couple hours as they let off steam. So thank you very much for allowing me to represent the city in the economic development sector, and thank you all for your time.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there questions or comments from council? Councillor
Yes,
Paulson.
Thank you very much for your presentation, guys. I just wonder, just backtracking a bit, Bill, if you could just maybe expand on MRDT for the general public, anybody who's watching and may not know what that moniker means, and
Sure.
very briefly, just the program.
So MRDT is Municipal Regional District Tax. That's the long word for hotel tax. It's essentially what it is. So if you go stay in a hotel in Duncan or Winnipeg or Regina or San Jose, you're probably going to pay that kind of a tax. And currently, Port Alberni is really the only community on Vancouver Island that doesn't leverage that. And the funds come back to the destination marketing organization for external marketing.
Great, thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Councillor Solda.
Bill, I hope at the end of the day, when COVID is sort of gone, right? I'm hoping that everybody can get together and do a debrief on what worked, what didn't work, because as you know, we've had this discussion, Elliot, yourself and I, that one size doesn't fit all on all these grants and programs, and they need to stop looking at the big corporations and start more into the ground here and look at the smaller businesses that really needed the help. And the frustration that I heard out there just was really sad. And I just hope in the end of the day that there is a debrief with the chambers or with the government. And
Yeah, and I think there will be, and really I'm hoping that our February 22nd dinner meeting at Dog Mountain will be the first opportunity to share some stories. But really, my view on all of the grants and stuff and all of the programs offered, the problem is that we don't live in a black and white world. And the programs are based on black and white. And, you know, no business is the same. And that's the challenge. That's why this events and fairs and festivals thing really, in my view, has been a great idea, but it didn't work. Certainly didn't work for Port Alberni
well,
fairs and
every
festivals.
community is different, so
Yes.
that's the big thing.
We're not black and white.
No,
That's-
thank you.
that's the
Thank
issue.
you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none. Thanks to the two of you for the presentation and for the work that you've done over the last I say few months, but many, many, many months through COVID to support businesses. As a small business owner myself, unfortunately in the restaurant industry, although we've been fortunate, but it's been a challenging time, and I've heard stories from many business owners who either have relied on the chamber newsletter to help them understand all of the programs that are out there, or who have met with Elliot themselves and really seen a lot of value in that. So thanks for the work you guys have done. And before we move forward, I feel like I was a bit remiss. I don't normally forget to talk about the SOMAS lands, but when we accepted the check from the Community Forest Corporation, I did just want to highlight for anyone who may not be aware. Of course, we received $300,000 today, but last year's dividend, I think it was last year, was $2 million. And that dividend really allowed us to make the purchase of the SOMAS lands. We wouldn't have been able to do it without those funds, as council didn't want to tax the public for the purchase. So just wanted to really take a moment to appreciate the community forest for that contribution and this one going forward. Okay, we will move on to unfinished business. Item number 1, we have Alberni Climate Action. So, thank you.
I have a mini meeting right here. Ron will be involved in it.
So council, this is brought back from a previous meeting, now that council has had an opportunity to connect on the report. We do have our Director of Engineering here as well. Are there questions on this for the Director of Engineering regarding the report or anything else? I think this can all be looked at as one item. And Rob, I'm not sure if you have any comments you want to make. You're welcome to come forward if you do.
Thank you, Your Honor. Worship. Not a court of law, sorry. I just briefly, about the report, is the purposes of this report to council right now is to present this together for Climate 2020 report that you're receiving. The report was initiated by ICLEI, which is the International Council for Local Environmental Initiatives, and there's quite a few communities worldwide involved in this, and I think 7 other communities on the island did this report. The project commenced in 2018, was the report completed in 2020. The process involved identifying local climate impacts. A community risk and vulnerability assessment was also done, and this was with engagement of the community through a working group. The report focuses on adaptation rather than mitigation, and that's outlined on page 6, which basically we recognize climate change is going to happen and what can we do to prepare for that rather than trying to avoid it. The major risks that were identified for our community through this assessment were sea level rise, wildfires, flooding, landslides, and water scarcity. And those are all outlined. There's 19 in total on page 14. The appendices of the report summarizes the 50 action items that the report is asking the municipality to consider, and they're itemized by priority with 3 different themes, and the themes are basically infrastructure, protecting infrastructure, the environment, protecting the environment, and protecting health. So those are the 3 themes that they're all set out, and I am available to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments? Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First, I'd like to thank David Morton, and he's here today, for bringing this report to Council's attention. So I really appreciate that. When I read through the report, we're already experiencing a lot of the climate changes that they talked about in this report, such as the extreme heat that we had in the summer, the wildfires that the province experienced, and now if you look outside, the extreme rainfall that we're experiencing, and it's only not even November yet, it's not even winter, so we're there, we're in the climate change. And I just want to say that by adopting this report, it's going to affect every decision that we make moving forward in this community. We really have to go back to this report and really think about not what we're going to do today, but how this is going to affect our community 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Councillor Paulson.
Just going through the report, and it's a great educational document for anybody who hasn't had a chance to read through it. It was my first shot at this when we received it on our agenda, but I would like to acknowledge the ongoing action, particularly of the city, with regards to initiating some things as we move along the last 5 or 10 years over the next 30 years. And just some examples is retrofitting some of our heat and cooling systems in our buildings, the LED lighting that we see in all of our streets. So it's not, actually, if you go outside, you can see the lineup of electric cars that are out there. So it's a large project. It's an ongoing project. It will change as technology changes. So I just wanted to acknowledge, Rob, the work that you and the city are doing moving forward as things come available and as funds come available as well. It's not an inexpensive adventure. So thanks for the report. David, thanks for bringing the report to our attention. I hadn't heard about it till we chatted, so thanks again.
Thank you. Council, who would like to read the motions? Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move that Council for the City of Port Alberni declare a state of climate emergency.
Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Poon. Comments? And I'll just add that when this first came up at our last meeting, I actually thought that our last council had done this. And looking back, I'm not sure where that fell off. So I have to say that I think sometimes, you know, making a declaration like this it's important, but the more important piece is the follow-up that happens after it. So you know, making a declaration can be meaningless in a lot of situations. And I think it's on us moving forward to make sure that we don't allow it to be meaningless. So it needs to be, you know, as Councillor Haggard and Paulson said, it needs to be entrenched in the work that we do going forward if it's going to be more than just a declaration. So seeing no more comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried. Any opposed? None opposed. Carried.
I'd like to move that council direct staff to provide the final report titled Together for Climate Project Report 2020 on the city website for public information.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Poon. Any comments on this? Councillor Solda.
I just want to make one comment. For years, this has always been presented to the ACRD in different levels of government in the community, and Gary, actually, who just left the building, sorry that he left before I could say this, he was really vocal on it and bringing it forward in that. So I was never, ever really a believer in climate change until I saw the bigger picture, and I'm getting there. So I just want to make that comment, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay, seeing no other comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. And the last one.
I'd like to move that council consider the report titled Together for Climate Project Report 2020 and its proposed actions in the 2021 OCP review and update in future strategic plans.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Poon. Any comments on this? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 2 from the Director of Parks, Recreation and Heritage. We have a verbal report on the hammer throw.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So at the regular meeting of Council on October the 12th, Council asked of staff whether the hammer throw was a one-time event or an annual event. And so the hammer throw is slated to be utilized annually at a minimum of one event each year. And because the hammer throw met international standards in 2021, we hosted an event where the same athletes who have participated achieved some significant results this season. That included 3 national championship titles, 2 national team members, one of whom won gold at the Tokyo Paralympic Games, and 2 Canadian records. And so it is staff's intent to facilitate ongoing use of the city-owned lot at the north end of Bob Daly Stadium, where the hammer throw landing area is located, and working in conjunction with the Fall Fair Society's annual use of this same lot. So staff are keen to work with invested user groups to facilitate multiple uses of this same site. And in addition, staff recommend inclusion of this provision of sharing the property in the Fall Fair Society's next lease renewal.
Thank you very much. Are there follow-up questions? Councillor Corbeil.
Thank you. So am I to believe then that you're going to sit down with the Fall Fair and work out a deal where once that thing is in, it stays in and doesn't have to be removed for the annual Fall Fair?
Yeah, so Madam Mayor, our intention, we're working in the background right now to find a way for all of the user groups to coexist in that space.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I just want to say that I think we have always been a community that really puts our resources behind enabling young people in sport. I think we're starting to see those same efforts across broader spectrums where we're putting our resources behind enabling young people in the arts as well. But I'm personally really proud to see that when we have young people who are dedicated and excelling, that we are making sure we have the facilities in this community to support them. So thank you for that, and thanks to your team. Okay, there's no other questions. We will move on to item number 3 under new business is the development permit for 3rd Avenue. Assume this was the racquetball club, and not sure if we have an update on that today or if it's just being added.
What I can say is that we have received a building permit application from the racket club owner based on the approved development permit by City Council. Our building inspectors have done a preliminary review and have requested some additional information from the engineer who is on part of that project. So we haven't issued the building permit yet because we are requesting some additional information, but the building permit application has been made in support of that development permit.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Solda.
Yeah, so just a quick question, Madam Mayor. Do we have an idea when the job is going to be finished, the building is going to be completed? Because it's really frustrating how many years it's been, and the community's asking, so I'm asking.
Yeah, I understand it's taken some time. Council did, like as indicated, we have approved the development permit. They have applied for the building permit, but we've requested some additional engineering information based on that. So once we receive that information, our building inspectors would be able to then proceed and be in a position to issue that building permit. So we're kind of dependent upon receiving that additional information that we've requested before the city can issue the building permit. So I guess I can't give an exact timeline, but I can say things are moving along, even though they might be a bit slower than council wishes.
So, Madam Mayor, just to follow up, so we've requested the information, but it could take him months before the information could get from A to B. It's just, I just don't trust not our process, their process.
Well,
I'm sorry.
No, I guess
I think what I'm hearing as a question is there a timeline? If we request additional information for someone's building permit application,
Yes.
is there a timeline to which they have to submit the complete application or it's declined?
There isn't really, because the building permit hasn't been issued yet. We need this information from their engineer in order to issue the permit. Once a building permit has been issued, then our building bylaw says within a certain amount of time, the project must start construction, or they can ask for an extension. But the development permit's valid for 2 years. If work has not started within 2 years, the development permit is invalid. Once a building permit is issued, there's also timelines on when the work must be commenced by, but there isn't necessarily a timeline on, when that additional information is requested, other than that the city has not issued a building permit for it.
How frustrating. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to staff reports. Item number 1 is accounts. Councillor Washington.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Excuse me. I move that the certification of the Director of Finance dated October 25, 2021 be received and checks numbering 149280 to 149353 inclusive and payments of accounts totaling $784,224.34 be approved.
Second.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Poon. Seeing no comments, all in favor? Carried. And item number 2 from the Director of Finance, we have the revitalization tax exemption update.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The report in front of us today is to provide Council with information related to the implementation of a revitalization tax exemptions, or an RTE, and confirmed direction. A municipality has the option to, within the community charter, exempt specific properties from the municipal value taxes that are up to 10 years. This is to encourage any economic, social, and environmental revitalization within a community. It should be noted that the RTE does not apply to the school taxes, MFA, and those other taxes that are collected on behalf of other organizations, and only just the municipal taxes. In 2006, the city also had an RTE for industrial properties, and that lapsed in 2010. Council has options not to seek an RTE or to direct staff to proceed with the RTE. In April of 2021, Council discussed and indicated a desire for an RTE on industrial properties with the underlying desire to see a community benefit achieved by providing an investment incentive to the city's industrial lands. Discussion indicated that staff should seek an RTE that is in alignment with our strategic priorities. And based on that, it was looking at the city waterfront and any support mechanisms that would provide opportunities to access these waterfront lands. When development of RTE was considered, the investment for the specific property in question had already begun. noting that exemptions are based on the prior year's value that are exempt. And in this case, we saw the investment in the light industry class start to occur in 2019. And we cannot actively pursue an RTE that has a retroactive provision in it, so we must base the RTE on the prior year's value. So as it relates to that property that was in question, the revitalization tax exemption would be based on the prior year's values, not the values at the start. So this was confirmed with discussions with BC Assessment when we investigated. The objectives that are based within the RTE could be sought within a community amenity contributions. This is an option that council has as we redevelop and seek opportunities to have these industrial lands improved as far as investment. Other factors that council should consider in this case is that fully serviced industrial lands are at a premium on the island. They're very rare and valuable, and many businesses are seeking the opportunities to source some industrial land. The City of Port Alberni has very low development cost charges, also low building permit fees, and our development fees are fairly reasonable. So the city recently purchased the major industry lands on the SOMAS, and we anticipate seeking the highest and best value on those properties. But with an RTE not in place for the industrial properties that might have some investment on it, these non-market changes would increase the tax base for the 2022 tax roll if an RTE is not in place. So an RTE must be in place the prior year by October 31st in order to be eligible for the following year. If council does not concur with the recommendation and still seek a tax revitalization bylaw, supporting resources should be considered to ensure that this opportunity is put into place if an RTE is the desired path for council. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there questions or comments? Councillor Corbeil.
Thank you for that report, Andrew. You're talking about light and heavy industry. What about lots similar to the old gas stations? Does that fall under any tax exemption for revitalization?
Madam Mayor, Councillor Corbeil brings up a property that would be classified most likely commercial, and we do have that in place right now for an RTE for commercial properties, Class 6.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments? Okay. I just want to agree with the recommendation. We know that industrial lands are in demand, and I believe as well that if people want to build industry in our community, they should pay taxes. We are not in a desperate position at this point in our community. I think that we know that if we have industrial lands available, they will be utilized. And we've seen that in the industrial land survey that's been done, and the display of the lack of industrial lands that we have in our community and Vancouver Island wide. So I don't think that we should pursue this any further because I think that we're going to get development either way, and let's make sure we get the type of development we want, and when they come to the community, let's make sure that it brings value in terms of taxation to the rest of the community members. Councillor Solda.
Madam Mayor, I'm going to move that the council not pursue the revitalization tax exemption for industrial properties.
I'll second. Seconded by me today. Other comments? Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This probably isn't a question for you, Andrew, but just maybe you can bring it back at the next meeting. We had talked before about reviewing our DCC charges and our building development permit fees because they were so much lower than other communities. I was just wondering if that had been started yet or in the horizon that we could review and update those fees.
Scott?
I defer to CAO, Deputy CAO.
I can let council know that we have been reviewing our building permit fees and do intend to bring a report to a future, probably committee of the whole meeting of council, so that we have ample time to discuss it and go over it with you, and some proposed changes to our building bylaw that staff will likely want council to consider. We have not started any sort of review of our development cost charges. That's a more substantial project in that you would have to do some engineering background work to determine what those new costs should be. It's something we should probably look to do, but we have yet to begin that at this stage.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments? Okay, so the motion is moved and seconded. On the motion, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Item number 3, from the Chief Administrative Officer, we have the Connect the Keys Pathway Advisory Working Group and appointment of representatives. And not sure if there's really much to say on this. Scott, do you have any comments on it?
I guess could just comment that this is a working group that was initiated and is part of the Key to Key project in conjunction with our both First Nations, and that it's recommended that the Mayor and CAO Tim Ply be the city's appointments.
And just for council's information, we have requested that both Sashot and Hupachesset appoint 2 representatives to this working group as well, and they have both done that. So we're really happy that they're both willing to participate at a table. Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have often discussed on council about some kind of a joint project between the city, the Shashot, and Hupachesset First Nations in order to help unite all 3 groups. So I think this is going to be a really good project. So I was really excited to see this come forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Poon.
I'm just happy to hear that we will have, cooperation between our local First Nations on this project. Thank you.
Thank you. And in the conversations that we've had, it's come through really strongly from both nations, the appreciation that the city is looking at ways to highlight the history of this area and some of the culture that exists here, along the way of the Key to Key path. So I think this is going to be a really positive opportunity to sit down with both nations and look at ways that we can celebrate what we have here. With that, would somebody like to read the motion? Thank you.
I'll move that Council for the City of Port Alberni appoint Mayor Minions and CAO Ply as city representatives to the Connect the Keys Pathway Advisory Working Group.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. And any further comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Okay, moving on to bylaws. Item number 1, the 2022 permissive tax exemption bylaw amendments 4997-2 and 4998-2. And I will just go to Twyla if you want to just clarify the second part before we begin.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So just for clarity, we're asking council to rescind the 3 readings previously given to the places of worship. There were no changes to that bylaw, so the city does have a bylaw in place that covers their exemptions for a period of 4 years. So in hindsight, we were a little overzealous when putting those forward with places of worship. So just asking for council to rescind those at this time.
Thank you. Okay. Councillor Washington, would you like to read the 2 motions?
I move that the permissive tax exemption bylaw 2022 amendment number 2, bylaw number 4997-2 now finally be adopted, signed by the mayor and corporate officer, and numbered 4997-2.
Thanks.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Corbeil. Seeing no comments, all in favor? Carried.
And that the 3 readings given to the places of worship exemption amendment number 2, bylaw number 4998-2 on September 27, 2021 be rescinded.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Corbeil. Seeing no comments, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. On to correspondence for action. We have 1 item today, and it's an email dated October 17th, 2021 from June Graham, president of the Alberni Clayoquot Métis Society, requesting that City Hall fly the Métis flag on Monday, November 15th, 2021, in recognition of Louis Riel Day. Would somebody like to move that request? It's Councillor Solda.
Madam Mayor, I move that the council authorize the request from the Alberni Clayoquot Métis Society to fly the Métis flag at City Hall on Monday, November 15th, 2021, in recognition of Louis Riel Day.
Thank you. Is there a seconder?
Second, Madam Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Washington. Seeing no comments, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. No proclamations today, so we'll move on to correspondence for information. Tyler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So items before council this afternoon are minutes from the audit committee. We have correspondence from a resident with regards to cannabis odor on 11th Avenue. And just to comment, those were pre-existing before the changes with Health Canada and cannabis-related items. We have minutes from the Alberni Valley Museum and Heritage Commission. We have correspondence from the Ministry of Education drawing attention to the 2021 Premier's Award. We have correspondence from the Office of the Premier drawing attention to Stronger BC Youth Leaders Council, and they're asking council to share in that information, hopefully to encourage youths to participate. And then we have the late item correspondence, which was from the Ministry of Forests. It's with regards to modernizing forest policy. 20 policy intentions have been developed, and they're speaking about workshops that are being held, and they're listed in the correspondence, one of which is November 3rd and another on the 5th of November.
Thank you. Are there items councillors would like to speak to? Councillor Haggard.
Twyla, did you send out that information for the workshops from the Ministry of Forest to us so that we could attend the workshops?
Yes. Have we sent that out? Yes. Yes.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. On that last one, do you know, is there an opportunity for council to participate in a formal way? I'm just remembering back to the private managed forest lands, and the city of Port Alberni submitted a formal submission to that process.
Let me review the correspondence and I will follow up with an email. It is talking about virtual engagement sessions, but there may be more for the part of council, so I'll read it more thoroughly and let you know.
Okay. Councillor Corbeil.
Yeah, I'd just like to comment on the letter regarding odors, and the letter writer says other cities have bylaws for this problem, and I know it was brought up at the last city council meeting. And I'd like staff to maybe talk to the city of Campbell River, who has an odor regulation, and find out if this actually would solve the problem that we're hearing about. I think it's been around for several years now, and it's part of their nuisance bylaw, I think. So maybe that should be the route we go. If it works in Campbell River, it could very well work in Port Alberni. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Twyla?
Sorry, just switching gears back to the previous letter. Just it says right in the paragraph, the sessions that I identified were specific for mayors and councillors, regional district chairs, electoral area directors, and senior staff, local government.
Okay. Yeah, I think on the cannabis odor, it would be great to research what Campbell River has and if that actually is working for them or not. Additional to that, the item F from the Association of Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities, it is giving us notice of the 2022 AGM. Looking forward to an in-person conference. I'm so challenging doing days of Zoom. But it's also giving notice of the resolution deadline, and I think that it would be excellent for the city of Port Alberni to prepare ahead of time to submit a resolution around requesting Health Canada be resourced appropriately to deal with some of the challenges that are coming from some of the cannabis facilities, and specifically the pre-licensing system facilities, not the ones that have come into communities since the more stringent regulations came, but prior to that. So I don't think we need to probably give any direction today, but I think it would be nice to start that process reasonably soon to research what has been done at AVICC and UBCM in the past.
Thank you, and I neglected to bring that item to your attention, so thank you for catching that.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Washington?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Harping on our cannabis odors, I noticed when you go to the Alberni Claycott Regional District, they have an Alberni Air Quality Society. I was wondering if we could take this letter and forward it to that society and see if they could get something happening short term before, I know the process of a bylaw is going to take a little while, but I think Chief Owens is on that too, so if we could forward that letter to that society, hopefully they could be of some help.
And I believe Councillor Poon is our representative on the Air Quality Council, so we could ask that she pass this letter along as well and see if they have any options to help. Okay. Councillor Paulson.
Just one other letter from the Office of the Premier with regards to Stronger BC Youth Leaders Council. I was just thinking maybe we could forward that to School District 70 to see if there's one or two very dynamic young people in our community that may be interested in applying to sit on that council. Also, I know through our Parks and Recreation programs, there may be some youth that emerge that would represent our community or our area. So just a thought on that. It would be nice to have somebody from the Alberni Valley or Alberni Clayoquot Regional District there.
Absolutely, it would. Yes, we will forward that along. This may have gone directly to
It may have,
school board as well, but we can pass it along regardless and just use social media as well to encourage. Okay, seeing no other hands in the air, would somebody like to move receipt of our correspondence?
I'll move receipt.
Thank you. Moved by
Second,
Councillor
Madam Mayor.
Poon, seconded by Councillor Corbeil. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. No reports from in camera today. Councillor reports. Would anybody like to speak to specific items? Councillor Corbeil.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to maybe go into a little bit of detail about the wood forum that I attended. There was a number of really interesting presentations. Western and Hueyat talked about their journey in the partnership in the TFL 44 and some of the things they're looking at doing. The Hueyat are doing an old growth strategy. They're doing a review on manufacturing opportunities, I think, which is really, really positive. The SAN group, they've hired a new vice president, a fellow who's been around for quite a while in the forest industry, and he went over some of the things they're doing, introduced a lot of their managers, and it was, again, quite an optimistic view on the forest industry. There was the discussion of the review into the forest policy, and there was a presentation on waste and by Vancouver Island University and the cost of getting waste to the paper mills. And lastly, there was an individual who's got a little shop down on 2nd Avenue, timber tiles, and I've given everyone on council one of these little tiles that they produce, and the adage of more value from less volume couldn't be truer. These things, they actually, they started by purchasing what's called wet hemlock, which doesn't have a tremendous amount of value, but they can make quite a nice little tile out of it. And lastly, any of the waste they produce, they make these little briquettes, and I believe they've worked out a deal where they donate them to the Salvation Army, and the Salvation Army's going to work with some folks to package these, and it produces a few jobs for people, and as well it would provide heat for probably people in low-income areas. So it's kind of a win-win, and again, kind of shows you with a little bit of ingenuity how far wood can go. You know, I'd much rather see these than ships full of logs. So, you know, overall, it was a really interesting forum, and, you know, there's some good things on the horizon. Thank you.
Thank you. And it's very exciting what Timber Tile is doing down there. And yeah, just really cool product. I had the opportunity to check out their site and learn more about it recently as well. And yeah, really, really nice to see.
You have a rental project going. Maybe if we all donate to the mayor, should we get some?
If everyone could just give me their free timber tiles. No, they're very nice though. Okay, any other items councillors would like to highlight? Councillor Washington and then Poon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a question for Councillor Corbeil. Where are these available for the folks at home to purchase?
From what I understand, he's only selling them through some group, and I don't recall the name. It's like Eco Tiles or something like that. His shop's down on 2nd Avenue, I'm sure, and I imagine we got the address there. If you were to get a hold of him, possibly you could buy them straight from the shop. I don't really know the answer to that question. Sorry.
It's okay. They're on 2nd and Argyle, just a couple down from 2nd and Argyle. Councillor Poon.
Thank you. I'll briefly highlight that I attended the Climate Caucus Summit, and there were a couple interesting panel discussions, and I've shared the links in my council report for everyone to view if they wish to. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, would somebody like to move receipt of council reports? Moved by
Second.
Councillor Solda, seconded by Councillor Poon. All in favor? Carried. Is there any new business councillors would like to add? Okay, seeing none, that takes us to question period, which is an opportunity for members of the public to ask questions. Come on forward.
Just a couple of questions of clarification. One on the business on 3rd Avenue that you were talking about, that you're waiting for some input on questions that are being asked before the permits are released. Is work going on there at the moment? I'm sorry, I should be putting this.
Scott, are you aware?
There's no work requiring a building permit that's going on currently.
Right. So there's no stop work order on the stuff that does require building a permit?
No.
Okay. There's no work being done on work that should require a stop work permit, which would be work that hasn't been permitted.
So currently, there's no construction on that site that I'm aware of that would require a building permit. They have submitted a building permit application on the facade work that was part of the development permit that has been approved, but that work has not yet begun and the permit has not been issued, as we are looking for some additional information from his engineer.
So the work has not begun?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that. Another thing I'd like to just clarify, it's been on my mind, when unfinished business often contains information that was requested under question period. And the agreement that took place about 7 years ago stated that if unexpected questions, that the council or CEO may require a couple of weeks just to get some facts straight, which is fair enough. The concern I have is so I ask a question, for example, at question period. Someone tells me they'll come back in 2 weeks with the answer. That answer is brought back under unfinished business. And this is where I have a problem. Is the person that asked the question during question period doesn't have an opportunity to respond to the response that city comes back to them with. And that is part of the process. I get a response from someone on city council or on staff, and it may not answer my question, which is quite often the case, or I don't agree with it. I haven't got a chance to just rebut on that. So I just believe, and I hope that the council would reconsider this, that responses to questions on question period should be made at this time, and the person, if they're still here, should be able to respond back if they don't agree with the response they're getting. Or when it's read out under unfinished business, that if I or someone else ask that question, that we should have an opportunity to respond under unfinished business. Am I making myself clear? I'm not.
I think I understand what you're saying. And I'll just add that we have discussed a larger review of our procedures bylaw. So,
Right.
you know, what you're speaking to would be a part of that review. I think there's a few things that could be tweaked in terms of order, and we did that, I remember, early in our last term on council. We reorganized the agenda and a few other things. So, yeah, thank you for that. I think that there's a few things that probably could be updated in our procedures bylaw. We would, unless council wanted to review it in a one-off situation, we probably would want to review the procedures as a whole.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah, thank
fine,
you.
thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Anderson. Any other members of the public wish to ask a question? Okay, seeing none, would somebody like to move adjournment?
Move adjournment.
Moved by Councillor Paulson, seconded by Councillor Solda. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much for coming, everyone.